Well, welcome everyone to our GSN community and our panel discussion today on sustainability by design. I'm Maggie Dunphy, the president of GSN Planet, and we are beyond excited to have this panel of incredible industry leaders with us today to learn from as they share their perspectives, their wisdom and insight. A couple of housekeeping things. This event is being recorded, and we encourage you to submit any questions you might have via chat, and we'll have a Q&A at the end of the panel discussion. We'd also like to thank our sponsors, Eminence, Living Earth Crafts, Universal Companies, One Well World, and Well Spa 360 for providing us this opportunity for GSN Planet to continue to foster relationships between leading industry experts and wellness industry professionals so we can share experiences, knowledge, and practices, because our goal is really to create innovations and programs as a collective being. So I'm going to now turn it over to Mike Brueggemann, who serves on the board of GSN, and this fabulous panel. Enjoy.
Thank you, Maggie. Just going to share screen for just one moment and do a few opening comments before we get into the panel discussion today. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for our European and international guests. Our trajectory for today will be to just do some brief introductions, and I'm actually being intentional for a change about the introductions because I learned a lot about this diverse panel that we've assembled today for your pleasure. And then we'll jump into the actual panel discussion and have a conversation. And we'll save about 10 minutes at the end for audience Q&A. So any questions that you might have, we'll try to address as many of those as we can during the presentation. And Maggie already thanked our sponsors, but once again, our platinum sponsor, Eminence Organics, our gold sponsors, Living Earthcraft and Universal Companies, and bronze sponsors, Dazzle Dry, OM4, and Haya, and then Well Spa 360 as well. So I pulled a couple of stats because I thought it would be interesting to prime the pump today. So I looked at a couple of different studies and I found some interesting information. In 2022, 78% of customers considered the company, and my people are in front of that, company's environmental practices before buying, and 68% of those customers were loyal to brands with society's best interest. That was a significant increase over 2020. So the citations are listed below, but that was from an article from Facts and Trends written by Brian Jansen. And then there was a Harvard business study on this whole notion of sustainability and how people are gravitating toward it. And so the next four statistics are related to the Harvard Business Review study. For most consumers, sustainability was considered a nice to have for many years, but that's really changing. And it really has, the impact of that is because of the shifting generations right now. So trust is a driving factor behind that. And as you can see, highly trusted companies outperform others by up to 400% in terms of market value. So this whole notion of how do you embed trust, and sustainability is one of those pillars that really helps consumers feel trust toward a brand. And as we see, we're starting to see that major transition from Gen Z and millennials moving into the full buying power, into their full buying power as the baby boomers now start to sunset from that position. And millennials and Gen Z are 27% more likely to purchase based on sustainability and trust than older generations. So this is something that's becoming much more prevalent, and I like to call it sustainability 2.0 because we had the old days of sustainability and so much has happened in the industry that it's really starting to become an everyday part of our existence. At least it is for me. So I'd love to introduce our panelists, and I'm so excited about having everyone join us today. We really assembled a group of really brilliant individuals. Charnay Leroux, as a lawyer, Charnay understands good corporate governance and the importance of standards in regulating sustainable business practices. She is an accredited professional of the Green Building Council South Africa and understands how water, energy, resource management, and green buildings impact the health of people and the planet. Charnay created the first dedicated organic spa in South Africa and knows the value and challenges associated with establishing sustainability in both spa and wellness sectors. Today, Charnay is president and founder of Green Spa Africa, a GSN executive committee and board member, a member of the scientific committee of the World Spa Organization, an initiative member of GWI Sustainable Development Goals dedicated to pursuing the UN 17 SDGs. Just gonna move one thing here. It is a committee member of the Spa and Wellness Association of Africa. Charnay joins us today from South Africa to share her expertise. Our second panelist is Clodagh. Clodagh passionately believes that good design supports well-being and it can transform people's lives. She feels that clutter can undermine serenity, but minimalism should not be self-denying. The experience of entering a Clodagh design space is one of blissful serenity. A believer in the tenets of integrative medicine, which addresses the entire body and psyche as a whole, Clodagh embraces both ancient and cutting-edge methods in an effort to comfort not only the body, but also the mind. Clodagh was among the earliest adopters of Feng Shui in her design practice and continues to lead the way in incorporating such innovative modalities as chromotherapy and biophilia into all of her projects. Clodagh has worked with such prestigious clients as Miraval, Six Senses, Crossing DC, W Hotels, and Equinox, which literally only scratched the surface of her illustrious portfolio of projects in both corporate and residential sectors. Jared Pickard. Jared and his family own and operate Be Here Farm Plus Nature, a 3-acre Demeter certified biodynamic farm located on 300 acres atop Spring Mountain on the Sonoma-Napa County line. The farm produces its own biodynamic preparations on site from scratch, grows over 300 unique varieties of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and flowers, and transforms those crops on site into a variety of artisanal food products and a holistic skincare line. The family plans to open the property to overnight guests in 2023. Jennifer Walsh. Bridging the gap between beauty, nature, and the brain, Jennifer is an acclaimed entrepreneur, author, and media figure who has spent over 25 years working at the intersection of beauty, retail, nature, and neuroscience to help people flourish. She pioneered America's first experiential retail brand, Beauty Bar, in the 1990s, integrating biophilic wisdom long before it became mainstream. Her trailblazing brand earned her regard as a beauty futurist, and Beauty Bar was ultimately bought by Amazon in 2011. Jennifer continues to share her nature-inspired wellness insights, media, including her signature wellness walks, which use mindfulness techniques to immerse participants to nature's benefits. Jennifer's work aims to reconnect people to their own creativity, passion, and soul. Jen's newest launch is The Lost Art of Being Human, Lab H, which is a culmination of her vast experience, knowledge, wisdom, and life on the planet. Lynn Curry, who many of you know, Lynn is the owner of Curry Spa Consulting, a global spa consulting firm based in Sonoma. She holds a certified management consultant designation through the Institute of Management Consultants and is a proud member of the International Society of Hospitality Consultants, which is the leading source of global hospitality expertise. Lynn's career as a spa specialist includes a portfolio of properties that have been featured on the best of lists of Travel and Leisure, New York Times, and other industry publications. Projects such as Montage Laguna, Island Spa Catalina, Ritz-Carlton Spas at Bachelor Gulch, Dove Mountain, and Laguna Beach, and with brands such as Four Seasons, Rosewood, and Marriott are among the prestigious clients Lynn and her team has chosen to serve. And finally, Noel Asmar. Many of you know Noel as well. But what I love about looking at people's bios is I learn something new each time about their vast commitment to the industry. Noel is a purpose-led designer with passion for empowering healthcare, spa, equestrian, and wellness workers through elevated apparel made for the way you move. In 2002, Noel launched spauniforms.com with a focus on improving how professionals both looked and felt at work. Today, Noel serves as the founder and creative director behind the Noel Asmar Group's portfolio of companies, which includes Noel Asmar Uniforms and Asmar Scrubs, Asmar Equestrian, and pedicurebowls.com. The Noel Asmar Group is privately held and a proudly woman-owned and woman-led corporation. NAG was recently awarded Most Innovative Company of the Year 2022 by iSpa for a sustainable collection of uniforms made with fabric from recycled water bottles. Family, animals, authentic loving connection sums up my view of one of the industry's most celebrated humans. With that, I would like to start our panel discussion. Okay, so the first question is, aesthetics, beauty, and nature are intimately connected. What benefits are you seeing when incorporating nature, light, and natural materials in design? I'm going to toss that one to you, Jennifer Walsh, first to start us off today.
Sure. Well, I'm really excited. There's more of a focus on how impactful beauty is, not just the beauty products we use, but really experiencing beauty in the spaces that we go. And I think that is really profound on the brain. So there's some great science being done. Our good friend, many of us know, Dr. Anjan Chatterjee, has been really deep in the research of neuroaesthetics and how art, beauty, our places and spaces really impact our overall health and well-being. And it's really lovely. And I'm so thankful that so many more people are really keeping an eye open to these health implications of why nature matters, not only outdoors, but also inside what we're creating with our spas, our homes, retail, and so on. So yeah, it's this connection of just really kind of peeling back the layers of what beauty means to the human body and how we experience it in so many different ways. And of course, it's going to be different for everyone depending on where we're from. But that awareness of beauty and how that really makes us feel in our soul, that really connects us to a place and space. And we can kind of feel it. We're all antennas. Each of us are antennas. When we step into a space, like, oh, God, this feels really good. Or it can also make you feel ungood or unwell. So I always say our places and spaces can make us well or unwell, and we get to make that decision of how we reside in that space or not.
Just curious how important we think this is in today's world where it's ultra busy. You know, we have phones, we have distractions coming at us from all different directions. Why is that connection to nature, aesthetics, and beauty so important today? Maybe more so than it was 15 or 20 years ago.
You want me to answer that, or to go to someone
Anyone,
else?
yeah.
Someone else want to answer that?
Go ahead, Jennifer. Or Loda. Go ahead.
I just say that. Go ahead. I was just going to say that what we need now is grounding, and we need the connection to the earth and the earth energy. You go barefoot, stand on a patch of earth. It's there's a moment now when the devices have taken us over, and we have to learn to put them aside and have areas in the house even where you don't allow them, you know. And somehow the biophilia, the senses are deranged at the moment. They really are. You know, people are starting things and stopping things. Never was making a physical list more important on a piece of paper.
It's no accident when you walk into a space and feel good that it's connected to nature, right?
Exactly. The space, when you walk into a space, it's any space that's been designed, it should give you a hug.
Yeah.
It should give you a hug. And
I love that.
And it should inform you why you're there. You know, whether if it's a restaurant, it should, well, don't get me started on restaurants. When did you last have a conversation at a restaurant?
Very hard.
Sound is a terrible hazard at the moment. sound attenuation. So with design, you can work on all these with a group of consultants. So you've got your sound consultant and you've got your lighting consultant. And then it's almost the whole design thing is like chamber music. You know, somebody picks up an instrument, somebody comes in and joins them, and then suddenly there's a whole group playing in harmony. And then the senses inform the emotions. And if the emotions are in good shape, then the world around us is in good shape. That's not quite answering straight, but it's an opinion.
You know, and Clodagh, in your bio, that point about designing, you know, the clutter can be distracting from our environment, and designing that out, but not sacrificing or denying the self in the process, which I thought was just such a neat juxtaposition of those two different elements on a continuum that you just kind of move back and forth between.
Yes, it's you know, we're talking about really designing the irritations out of people's lives. And learning us, teaching us how to use the sense of touch. So with storage, you know exactly where everything is. You get up in the middle of the night, you want something, you don't have to turn on all the lights. You know, you can just go, you know that in that cupboard, you walk down 3 steps, and on the right-hand cupboard, there's whatever you're looking for. You know, it's we study how people move through space and how they use space, inside and outside, how we bring the outside in and the inside out.
And every time you do that outside space, that you're saving on the footprint of the actual building. So
Yes.
right there, you're being sustainable with everything, the building, the air, the environment.
And using air cleaning plants like jade plants and pothos and stuff like that inside, so that the air is being cleansed by the plants while you're inside. It's very important. You know, even the big bowl of perfect fruit and potatoes and vegetables in your kitchen, you know, it give you a good feeling. It's all about feelings. I mean, we're little bags of emotions and feelings, really. You know? I think when I'm flying in an aluminum capsule between Earth and infinity, what the hell is all this about anyway? You know, it's so grounding people and celebrating all the senses. It's very important, and bringing in every element, and indeed working with feng shui and biogeometry, so we can actually make the invisible tangible by embedding symbols and crystals and stuff like that. It's a whole body experience.
I'm very pleased to hear you bring up biogeometry, because it's a perfect segue to what was coming up for me as an owner builder in developing overnight guest accommodations, which I'll put an asterisk on that and just correct my bio in a second. But when we were designing those spaces, you know, they'll end up being a spreadsheet of 1,000 different decisions that are going to go into the space. And many of them end up being invisible, like construction materials that are behind a wall. If the wall's not made out of, say, rammed earth, but it's made out of modern day construction materials. And a lot of these invisible decisions are going to have toxic off-gassing results, especially in the first couple of years after construction. And so that's obviously counter to the type of wellness space that you're trying to create. And then the invisible impact of all the electrical and Wi-Fi devices that exist in these spaces, and where are they located relative to where people are spending the most amount of their time, whether that's sleeping or lounging, or if it's an employee, like their workstation. And biogeometry does have some solutions for that if people aren't familiar. It's a concept around harmonizing the energetic quality of a space, as opposed to the more, like, I say traditional, but it's probably 10 years old, but the more traditional approach to EMF mitigation would be like shielding and blocking it, as opposed to creating an energetic quality of the space that, like a tuning fork, was allowing all of the items in the space to resonate harmoniously, even if it was a Wi-Fi router. So I think just there should be a goal around identifying the invisible aspects of the user experience, and because, like, if you go to a restaurant, a farm to table restaurant, you might expect that the main entree item, I mean, an average person looking off the street might expect that the whole place is farm to table because they're calling themselves a farm to table restaurant. But at the end of the day, it might just be like the main protein item. By the time you get somewhere in their larder, whether it's the oils or the spices or even some of the vegetables, you're going to find that they're probably not organic. They're probably, you know, chemically grown and came off of a truck. And so same as in like in a spa space, it's not just the surface. As an owner builder, when I was designing my space, it wasn't just the superficial aspects of it that I wanted to look and feel like nature, but I wanted to get to these invisible aspects as well, which are certainly impacting, you know, our health.
Such a good.
Also, I think that we're totally overlooking water. The largest organ in our body, our skin, and when we're having our shower, we should be very aware of what that water contains. I mean, we try to put in filters wherever anybody will accept them, because we all use water, and again, it's invisible. You have to turn on a faucet to get it, unless you're living on a lake or a river or something. So it's making it's looking at the invisible, testing out the invisible, the air quality, the water, and anything that touches your body.
Such an important point, because now we're starting to look at the whole ecosystem of the building, of the environment from start to finish, the entire supply chain, which is really important. I'm going to throw the second question to Lynn. Lynn, what objectives are owners and investors requesting be built into the architectural and interior design of projects today?
Well, first and foremost, you know, one thing leads to another, right? It's always a chain reaction. And once we've studied the hotel property, once we've studied the spa and looked at the demographics, then we really start to understand the use and what kind of people will be using it. And then, of course, how to generate revenue, right? So we want to generate revenue, but we want to honor everything we can do to be sustainable. So a couple of the things, well, one main thing we're looking for too is how to generate revenue when all your treatment rooms are booked, which leads to communal spaces, which leads to the trends lately the new trends are be in nature and soak in a hot spring or soak in a pool or soak in water, which what's funny is they're not new trends. These are ancient trends, right? But we're incorporating those, especially in the US North American market. We're starting to incorporate those. But the thing that's so great about the communal aspect in building is that an owner can charge a facility fee to use the facility, even if your treatment rooms are booked. And the guests can still receive a really nice, relaxing experience, probably in nature. The other thing that the communal spaces do is it allows us to make decisions that don't duplicate. So do we want a little small steam room and a little small sauna in each of the men's and women's areas? Well, let's rethink it and do a really cool outdoor sauna that's grand with windows looking at nature and a really big steam room that can be communal. But now you've got one steam generator. Granted, it's going to be bigger, but we're saving on space. We're saving on indoor space. We're also encouraging that water and pools are in an outdoor environment, because to have an indoor heated pool and a cold plunge and a steam room creates a lot of condensation problems, which means your HVAC has to run extra. You need extra HVAC in a pool building. So try to push all that outside, and then think about, isn't it kind of fun to jump out of the room and walk through the snow and jump in a hot tub? I think it's fun, but we have to use the out of doors even when the weather isn't that great. Let's use heat lamps. Let's use misters. Anyway, I'll stop there.
Jennifer, I'm going to segue to you on that point about outdoor weather and classifications that we put on weather.
Who, me?
Yes.
Oh yeah. So I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second. Yeah, you know how I talk about that, because I feel like there's no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothes. It's a saying.
Yeah.
I think to Mike's point, I hear this a lot, and it makes me not upset, but worried that especially meteorologists tend to always say things on the news like, it's an awful day outside, don't go out, it's cold or it's rainy. It's all these things that are a detriment to human health when they're telling people not to go outside because it is raining or because it might be cold. So I get very say, come on, we need to kind of do better and educate people on why we have to go outside. Don't fear the cold. Don't fear the rain. You know, it's not going to be 70 degrees and sunny all the time around the world. So we have to really educate people on why our words matter, and how we talk about the outdoors really matters for all humans, not just ourselves as grown adults, but also children when they're hearing the news and these meteorologists saying, don't go outside, it's going to be raining, or don't go outside, it's going to be snow flurries today. It's very
I love that, because that generates laughter.
mm,
You
yeah.
know, when people are going from hot tub to snow, or from chilly weather. I love it when people laugh and converse, because with the loneliness and project brought on by COVID and devices, I love to get people together. So whether a spa shouldn't be a quiet space where nobody dares to speak. There should be a place where you can actually converse.
Yes.
and interact. I think it's great fun. I love that brand, Pan Quotidien, where they have that like 15-foot table, and anybody can sit there with their coffee and conversations start up. And I want to see that communication coming in, but through design. We can design a space so people will use it the right way.
And not be afraid to speak to one another, you know, put those devices down, like you said, and turn the notifications off and be human again, and just have interactions and conversations. I love the visual, Lynn, you just shared about walking through the snow to the hot tub. That brought a feeling within inside of me. Think about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we also have to think about the less, wonderful side too. And that is, we have to keep our staff sustainable. We have to develop the right back of house. That has to be done in the design.
Totally.
And then we have to design for being able to take care of the vendor partners that we're using in the spa. And Noel, I mean, you've got this amazing program with recycling, and the spas have to be able to help you do that and make it happen. So we have to build it correctly so that the back of house areas have that capability.
And there's certainly
I totally agree. And for the staff to be able to sit down and eat and relax, so many facilities, you see the staff actually standing up and gobbling something down and then running out to take care of a client. It's I love that. I was talking to a little Buddhist teacher, and he said, treat everyone you meet like your favorite child. We have to treat our staff like our favorite children.
I think 2 points that you bring up that are really resonant are, excuse me, I should have brought a glass of water, are, first of all, the communal spaces, because loneliness and isolation are significant statistics today in the wellness culture, and we can start to see where sustainability and wellness really integrate together. We also have touched on that staff and guest wellness, and it's our belief in my foundation work that the organization is only as well as the individual employee. So employee wellness today has got to be a big part of this equation when we're thinking about design, and how are we taking care of the staff that ultimately takes care of the guest. And on an anecdotal note about the cold and snow, and I was up visiting Mohonk Mountain House. Many of you know Mohonk, which is one of our Green Spa Network partners as well, and our spas. And I was speaking with Margaret Laura, and they're planning and Jennifer, I think you're part of this, the wellness weekend coming up in February. And you're going to do a little bit of a snow immersion where you're actually going to lay out in the snow. And Margaret was saying, well, how do we make the guest feel comfortable when they're in the snow? And Nina Feldman Smiley, who's one of the family members who still owns Mohonk Mountain House, said, hell no, it's cold. Get used to it. You got to get into it and just be in the moment with it and learn how to deal with it. And I think that that's, such an important message in life.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
So our next question is, most of us live challenging and fast-paced lives, and this goes to you, Clodagh. Talk to us a little bit more about designing those irritations out of spaces today.
Well, it's I find that dealing with garbage and storage and recycling, as I said, water, all these things are very challenging, because storage can be the most irritating thing in feng shui. If you put storage under a bed, it drains the energy. not much used storage, storage that's not being used at all, just stuff that you have and you put in your garage and stuff like that. So accessible storage is very important when we're designing. Even the space between the studs in the bathroom when we're building is deep enough that you can cut down on shipping by buying your bath things and your bathroom things in quantity, you know. Separation of storage so that everybody has owners that's sleeping in the house or working in the spa, whatever it is, has their own space that they're responsible for, but they know it's their space. You know, the cross-fertilization of storage in families, I find one of the most irritating things there is. So that really brings down the irritation level. And come to your kitchen, for instance. You go to the market, and I hope everybody knows where the nearest farmer's market is, because that's important in well-being. But you bring back the stuff. What do you do with it? Put stuff in the back and forget about it, or do something. I mean, I work full time, so I have somebody who actually chops the stuff and prepares it and puts it in glass jars in the fridge, so I can be magic chef, you know. So I don't have the irritation of doing archaeology in my fridge. It's all there to see. Same with the dog food; it's all there to see. And that takes down your level of irritation. I have to tell you, it really does. Calms things down. And proper lighting is one of the most important things we have and we deal with. It's major. Having light to put your makeup on or shave, but also have emotional light in your bedroom. So if you feel like making love, you look as good as you're going to possibly ever look. It's irritating if you go to a hotel and suddenly flip a switch and lights blaze on everywhere and you're naked. It's like, ow. So we take all that into account, and we do love lights in the hotel room. So you just switch on a light that's under the bed, do whatever you want to do. So it's and then you don't want to make love, you want to read, and you turn on the reading light by your bed, and you can't read by it. So irritation. So we're challenging each other all the time. I think I've 5 pages for an ideal hotel room list.
I love that. I think, making things easy and just intuitive is such a big part of any brand and the work that we do. Charnay, the environment is changing, obviously. What are some of the downsides of not considering sustainability in design today?
Before I answer that question, I just want to go back on something that Claudia said and the importance about lighting and proper lighting. And that's the irritation caused by excessive night light in particular. Our cities are so lit up and our buildings are so lit up, and over and above the energy challenge that creates, it's certainly also a great irritation, and not just for humans, but also for nocturnal animals and migratory species. So I think there's a lot that can be done to soften our night light, our external light, make it shine down instead of up into the night sky. Certainly you can get rid of a lot of irritation there. But yeah, I mean, you've raised, a number of us here on the panel have raised issues around off-gassing of the equipment and the building products that we've used. We've spoken about staff spaces. And I don't know if you've ever heard the syndrome, sick building syndrome. It's often used in the green building environment. And it's a scientific term associated with especially building occupants who experience lethargy, headaches, and nausea when they are in a building, but when they leave the building feel much better. It's difficult to pinpoint, but certainly it is associated with the conditions in a building. I've always thought that it has to do with old, dank buildings because they don't have enough light and not enough fresh air. But it's actually more prevalent in some of our modern buildings, and especially some of these spa buildings, because there aren't windows that you can open. How many of our new modern buildings have just closed windows or no windows whatsoever. And I think this is a very problematic aspect for building occupants, because if you feel unwell in a building, then you are not going to be there. So there's loss of production, there's absenteeism, and I think it's a serious problem for some building owners. And as I said, it has to do with the availability of natural light. It has to do with the quality of the air that we breathe, having enough air. It has to do with things like having an external view. And I've been to so many spas where your room is dark and it's darkened by a curtain, and the ambiance that is created is to exclude nature, rather than opening the windows and opening the curtains and letting that come in. There's no reason why a room should be dark and quiet. I mean, as you've also said, Clodagh, having it open, listening to the sounds outside is really so important. So I think there's a lot that can be done, and especially in our staff spaces. I've seen staff back of house areas where they have to have lunch in the laundry room, and I don't know how they transfer the wellness to their clients if they are not treated like gold themselves. So I think it's the small shifts and the nuances that we need to change to make sure that our buildings are healthy and well spaces.
I think, Sharna, you touch on a point too that's very interesting, because you talked about the old dank buildings or older buildings, but the syndrome actually is prevalent in newer buildings, synthetic fragrances. Many times, buildings or hotel brands will have a fragrance that's signature to the brand. And sometimes it's not that pleasing. And I travel quite a bit for work, and I spend a lot of time in hotels. And I can tell you there's times where I'm in a room where the cleaning supplies or something had been used that is just so overpowering that it's just totally disruptive to my well-being. And I know I'm not as good with the guests or the clients that I'm working with when I didn't get that good night's sleep because of the air quality in the building. So all of these little subtle design criteria are so important with sustainability and thinking about natural, thinking about bringing in nature versus synthetics. And yet there's a lot of work that's being done on synthetics, because there's quite an argument there to be said for synthetic versus naturally farmed and sustainability and availability of products as well.
But there's recyclable synthetics, I mean, there's synthetic things made with recyclable materials, which is, I think, great.
There was another point that I wanted to make, just a simple change that people can make in their spaces. And I've assisted a client with it recently, is taking out all the office equipment from your treatment spaces and your spa spaces. Have all your photocopying, your printing and your computers in a separate room, because they too off gas. It's not just the paints and the carpets that do that. So and it was almost like a home that we've created, where back of house is truly back of house, where all the machines are, and you only go there when it's absolutely necessary. So that is a good practice also.
Awesome.
That brings me actually to something that we're talking about. I seem to be always talking about irritations, and one is labeling. That people don't take into account that when you go into a shower, if you're a person who wears glasses, you can't tell which is the shampoo and which is I don't know. Simplify really, really clear labeling. And also, you should not have to have a manual to run your room. You're going into a room. It's like buying a new car or something. Where are you going to put your suitcase? It should all be so obvious and intuitive, and it's not. We've all been through this, right?
Clodagh, it reminds me of a hotel in Napa that will remain anonymous that I walked into one time. It was one of the most beautiful designs that I've ever seen. Just lovely. I could not figure out how to turn on the temperature, do the lights or anything, because everything was dimmed and lit in different rooms, and the control panels were so complicated that it was just like, okay, now this is no longer fun. So it actually worked against the overall experience of that beautiful space.
It's
just by the-
all about visuals, you know?
Exactly. Jared, I have a question for you. How important is the integration of wellness features into the built environment, such as spa, fitness, and health facilities?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I feel like I'm, biased on this one because this is sort of all I think about. But when I wanted to answer that question, I first wanted to even understand what was meant by the word wellness. And so, when I looked up the etymology of wellness, it was connected to the wheel, which was connected to chakra, and which was also connected to wealth. And so for me, what it comes down to is acting in reciprocity with the abundant flow of nature, basically. And so like nature is the abundance maker. And so if we want to have wellness in our spaces, then we need to act in a reciprocal way to what we observe in nature. And like we all observed during lockdowns of COVID that there was a tremendous rebound in nature. So left to its own accord, the natural flow of nature is regenerative and abundant. And so if we want that in our lives, we need to implement all the many things that were discussed today, because these are resonant with that flow. So the opposite, I mean, another way of answering it is, what's the opposite? I mean, not to do this is, we've talked a lot about the downsides so far on the panel. I mean, that's what not doing this has achieved. And our population in general is battling various sicknesses. Most people have health challenges. Just if you look around your own family or whatever, everybody knows somebody who's struggling health wise. And so the underlying root of pretty much, from my observation, most of the diseases that people in my life face can be traced back to some sort of disconnection from nature, which is a very broad comment, but it's our modern lifestyle is really quite different than what our bodies evolved to handle. And so I think that reconnection with nature, which per the definition, I think means, designing wellness indoor spaces, but reconnection with nature, I think, is the medicine of our time. So I think that it's the spa industry's in a really unique position to actually lead to transformative change in people's lives, one guest at a time, as they experience that wellness, which is absent of all the irritations of their regular life, and like Lynn was saying, hopefully embedded in nature. And so I think it's the most important thing.
It's interesting that I'm thinking back to a GSN Congress that we had at Sun River many, many years ago, and Jean Houston spoke, and she said that spas have the opportunity to become the incubators of human consciousness. And I loved that comment. And look what's happening today, 10 years later. I mean, wellness is becoming totally integrated with spa, and they were not, 10 years previously. So we are seeing that evolution in the industry, which is so exciting.
There's something I would love to see, because spas tend to be geared towards grown-ups. And I would love to see classes in spas for children to learn how to take care of their bodies.
And how to be sustainable too. Like, I mean,
well, exactly. It's just
the education programs you're doing, Noel, too. I mean, that's awesome. Yeah.
Noel, the last question is for you. Talk to me about the benefits of sustainable design. We've talked about water and resource management, air quality. So let's just kind of take it down to that tangible level. What might some of the benefits be?
Yeah, well, I think there's just one key word that Clodagh keeps repeating is friction. And the entire design process really is a very, very intentional process. It's usually a process that considers the user's benefits, the user experience, but sustainability, when you start thinking about designing products, really need to think through the entire life cycle assessment, like thinking about the products and the materials that you're using, That all starts way before it gets into the hands of the consumer, way before a guest arrives to a spa or a hotel. And it comes down to the principles, the good old-fashioned principles of quality, things that last. A very absurd thing to think about is we are, for the most part, we do apparel and we do recycled plastics as well. But the number one reason our products are being thrown away is because of a stain, of a chip, of something that just doesn't, something that can't be repaired. And so we're not thinking about the longevity of a product. So it's a beautiful concept to consider if you're a product developer, whether it's skincare, you're developing equipment for the rooms, air filtration systems, etc. It's a synergistic approach, and we can't think about the one product. We need to think about it, how it intersects with our lives, how it intersects with the other products we might be using, how it intersects with people that are coming from different places. When you begin to become responsible, and responsible purchasing, acquisition to responsible disposal, that thinking has to become part of that purchasing decision or that design and development stage. It's not an afterthought. So that takes commitment. And Lynn, I'm sure, and Clodagh, when you're working on projects from inception through, it's about getting everyone on the same page. It's about encouraging and not necessarily convincing, but educating people that there has to be some thought in how we are disposing. So, I can think back, back to when I started Spa Uniforms in 2002, nobody was really talking about sustainability at the time. And we work in the spa industry in particular with very, very challenging products, oils, waxes, dyes, lots of water. There's lots of water flow through all of our types of projects that we're working together on. But we don't also think of the toxicity of the stream of the products that are going into our water streams. And, while the fashion industry is being really highlighted for the toxic traditional way of making clothing, it has been one industry that has been forced to learn how to manage water. Claude, I know you've worked on some really interesting projects from this perspective, but I think design is the one exciting area that has the potential to transform the way we live.
Absolutely.
Does that answer that, Michael?
No, I think we all have to be leaders, with the flow through system. Yes. When it comes in, we have to filter it ourselves and see how we're going to spread the good word. Filtered.
Intention, I want to say, is, a human being, I think, at the center of the heart has good intention. And then we run into real life, to the barriers of life and in the workplace, and the things that we want to do, we can't always execute on them. When we launched Hospitality Life Cycle, which was really just more of an initiative to have the spa and the hospitality industry consider, this is just an example. What do we do with our linens? What do we do with our robes? What do we do with our towels? What do you do with our uniforms when we're finished with them? Where do they go? And we hear about where the fashion textiles go, but we don't hear about industry. And I think our community has a really big opportunity to have an impact, a positive impact in hotel, in hospitals. We're seeing the hospitals now, single use, a lot of products going to waste. And that's really back down to innovation, entrepreneurs, people that are thinking out of the box, engineers, scientists, and collaborating with the scientific community, I've learned, is really a critical component of being able to effectively make change, because that's their work. That's what we just need to work together. So yeah, design is exciting, Michael. Everybody on this panel has had their hand in design in order to execute on a vision, and sustainability, that the successful companies that are making an impact start from the beginning.
And one small thing in design can lead to a whole lot of sustainability efforts. I mean, just the filtered water stations in hotels, on every floor, in your gym, not just in your gym and your spa, but just that is just fabulous if you can get that in and in the early stages of the design.
And your employees, like, they need to be part of the movement. They need to be part of the movement. It can't be top down only. And that's when you see change start to happen.
So
And
I'd like
there's
to-
another thing we never talk about because it's a dirty word is our jails. Something I'd love to design, where we really don't treat the humans, we treat our animals considerably better than we treat people that are in jail, and how we can use jails as training centers to go out and look at the environment. If you're there alone in your cell or sitting at your table, there's ways that we can actually not only improve the environment, but also improve the humans that are inhabiting the environment. I really would like to hit the jails, the children, bring it all in.
I think sometimes our own spa directors can feel that way because the offices are around. No, the offices are around the corner. There's no windows. They're in the back.
Yes.
And they're stuck at their desk because there's so much to do as a spa director and they're so busy all day long. So I think that's a really good place to give the spa directors a window. At least.
So much brilliance in this room, but I have to leave at least a couple of questions for the audience. So I'd like to ask Dara, do we have any questions that came in for the panel today?
We do. I will start with, as a day spa owner and operator, what would you suggest as the best way to get started on this path? And what are the things that would positively impact our environmental footprint immediately?
Filtered water station and buy Noel's uniforms.
I think waste management is probably one of the practices that is the easiest to execute. I think it is something that we can all understand. It is a practice that allows you to involve all your staff members. So I would start there, to start with manage a waste audit, see where you are, and then start implementing good waste management practices. Yes.
I think if you can teach communications and acknowledgement of people, that you're oiling the wheels. So to bring people together and talk about it, and for people to have ownership of it. That the environment, a lot of people think the environment is something they'll worry about another day, but they're in it. So
I'd say also
raising consciousness.
And work really closely with your suppliers, your skincare providers, all your different providers, and use them as your resources. Include them when you're trying to fix things, you're trying to create solutions for end-of-life products. I think that's an under-tapped resource.
Something I find so fascinating to me is in the local community that I live in, I'll go to toss my trash, and we have different bins, for recycle, for glass, for mixed recycle, trash, landfill, and no one gets it. I don't want to say no one gets it, but a lot of people don't get it. There's tons of bags of trash in the glass, and it clearly says glass only. So I think we have a responsibility just to teach consumers how to recycle. I think that's a very easy thing to set up, or structurally within the design of a project, or even in your spa. How do you recycle?
One suggestion that
can we start a life class, maybe? We start a life class. No,
I think part of the life class curriculum would be what I was just going to suggest as a freely available step someone could take, which would be to look at seasonality as a portal to nature connection and wellness. If somebody was making some product decisions or programming decisions based on the season, I think they'd be heading in the right direction.
That's a very good idea.
The laws of nature are indisputable. Is there another question, Dara, that we can answer?
Yes. How many are sharing cleaning and disinfecting products from hotel housekeeping? Most hotels are using toxic chemicals. There are options to effectively clean and disinfect without harmful chemicals that are also sustainable and eco-friendly.
This is exactly what I was talking about. When you get deep enough in somebody's larder, you find where they've made decisions that weren't up to the standard that you're expecting, or that even they may have been advertising. And so, you know, it's hard perhaps to have institutional change, but I do believe there are cost-effective solutions in all these different departments, and it just requires education and prioritization to make those decisions, I would say.
You know, it would be
think we-
wonderful if we could get this group. It's terrific, and maybe we could get an international environmental fund that the hotels make a contribution to, a tiny amount per guest per night, to make up for all the waste which they have to, you know, the laundry, water waste, and all that. If the hotels give those a giant environmental international fund. Michael, if you're ready to go, start something.
Yes, I think that's a brilliant idea and can be applied to a lot of product line companies and everyone involved, actually.
I'd like to request a 3-hour follow-up interview with Claudia, please.
I think, you know, this panel has been so brilliant, and I think we have time for maybe one more question, Dara, that we could quickly answer if there's one.
Sure, yes. What innovative approaches are being used to positively impact the environmental footprint of consumer products?
I can take that one. You know, just as a consumer product developer myself on the skincare and body care products, today I think it's more important than ever, and the panel has touched on it, that it's a community effort. You know, I can't just look at it through my eyes as a product developer. I have to bring in the raw material supplier. I have to bring in the farmer. I have to bring in, you know, the broader community to solve some of these more complex problems. We still find that plastic is still a very prominent material in skincare products. And I think that's the number one thing that we have to work away from. And it's just mind-boggling to me that in an industry of many, many packaging and manufacturing companies, that we can't find a solution other than plastic yet for many of our, you know, for the product lines that we see on the market today. But what I, in the last brand that I developed, I did a certification process with Cosmos, and Cosmos looks at the entire life cycle of the beauty system, from seed all the way to how is it grown, what is the land that it's grown on, how does that get transported to the manufacturing facility, what happens in the manufacturing facility, how does it then leave the manufacturing facility, get to the lab, what does the lab do with it? After the consumer uses it, what happens to it? Does it biodegrade into the environment? So it's really, you know, a circular system in many respects. And I think that that's the key as we start to think about going forward, is thinking holistic, circular, and then also bringing in community, bringing in involvement. Thank you all for a brilliant conversation today. My heart is full with your brilliance and your contributions today. GSN community, I hope you benefited from this conversation. And until next time, or till part 2, thank you and have a wonderful week ahead.